Welcome everyone back to the channel. If you're new here, Mad.Forensic.Scientist, I like to talk about science. Forensic science, clinical science, all that jazz. CLIA lab director, clinical science, toxicology, forensic toxicology, all that great stuff. But today, I want to talk about trade-offs. I was listening to a podcast that had Alex Hormozy on it, and he was highlighting some very important things about trade-offs. Everything's come to trade-offs. It's very common that we look in life and we see somebody having something, and we're like, oh, wait, man, I really wish I had that. But we don't always want to make that trade. We don't always want to make the sacrifices that they made to achieve that. We see the billionaires, we see the people with the big business, we see people with the fancy cars, the MDs, the doctorates, the PhDs, and we're like, oh, man, I want that. I want that life. I want that paycheck. I want that quality of life. But then they sacrificed a lot. They made massive trade-offs to get there. And you're like, well, maybe I don't want to make that trade-off. Well, then, yeah, that's fair. You can't get that life then. You can't have that. You can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And as with life, it's with the lab too. The lab's the same way. You can't have the status. You can't be the lab director. You can't be supervisor. You can't be a lab owner without putting in the work. You have to put in the work to accomplish those things, to get those things. And I think it's really easy as when you enter into a laboratory that you want those things, but you might not necessarily want to put in the work to achieve those things. You want to put in the effort, put in the time, the sacrifice, and that's what it takes. It takes time. You have to gain that knowledge, gain those skills to get there. You got to trade. You got to make the sacrifice. You got to put the time in, put the work in, put the effort in, put the money in. Do what it takes. As if you want to be, so if you want to be the owner, if you want to be a lab director, you want to be a supervisor, you want to be the technical lead. All those things require time, commitment, and effort. Part of that is money. So it could be, if you want to be like a lab director, then you need a PhD. You want to be a doctor, you maybe need an MD. An owner, you need to put in the time. You gotta get the money. You gotta have the money to be an owner. You can't just be an owner. You don't get promoted to owner. It doesn't work like that. Supervisor is time. Supervisor is effort and time. The experience. You gotta be in there, put in that time, put in that effort, put in that work. That's how you get to that part. That's how you get to that role. Now, the trade-offs. Everything comes with a trade-off. If you want it, you got to put in the time, you got to put in the effort. And you got to make that trade. You got to be willing to make that trade. And on the flip side, value. It's important to understand that to improve your wealth, to improve your worth to a company, to your laboratory, to your situation, you need to add value. You need to be adding value to your organization. Add value to your organization, add value to yourself. The best way, in my opinion, is to add value to yourself. To build your skills, to build up, that makes you valuable to the company. That makes you valuable because you're going to improve efficiency, you're going to add consistency, add stability. Those are all important things to a laboratory and to any business, any kind of setting. Those things help. So if you can do that, if you can build yourself, then at the same time, you're going to build the laboratory. And hopefully, the laboratory that you work for is going to compensate you accordingly. Now, worst case scenario, the laboratory does not compensate you fairly or adequately or up to your standard or what you believe you're worth, then the market will tell you. You can go out there and find you another job. If somebody else is willing to pay you the money, then boom, you're right. you weren't getting paid enough. You weren't getting paid adequately because someone else is willing to pay you. But if no one else is willing to pay you, then maybe you're overvaluing your skills, and you need to up your skills. You need to up that ante, get better. Now, it's important to make sure that you are increasing the value. Increasing your value will ultimately increase the value that you can generate for the laboratory, for the company, and that's going to be huge. And part of that, you have to be willing to make that trade-off. I think, especially with the Gen Z, this younger generation, they get a bad rap for not having initiative, not following through, wanting too much, wanting to have freedom and money and all this good stuff. And I'm a millennial, by the way, just to clarify. Millennials used to be the ones who got that rap, and now Gen Z is bearing that burden. But I don't think they're wrong. I think that they're valuing themselves and they're valuing their skills. Maybe they're overvaluing a little bit. Maybe. Maybe they're not willing to, maybe they're not making the appropriate amount of trade. Maybe they're not making the appropriate time to make that worth. But I think the concept is right, that they need to be valuing themselves and they need to value their worth. Because ultimately, nobody else is going to value it as much as you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to put the work in. You got to make that trade off to put the work in to get the value. I definitely don't think that you should be sitting somewhere 10 years with 2 raises in that entire time, 4% raises. Obviously, that's not going to cut it. That's the kind of stuff that the older generations did, and they put in that sacrifice, and that's why they're like, oh, you guys don't take anything for appreciated. You guys want to raise every year. What the crap? I get it. It's a different time, and maybe your company that you're at isn't going to be the one to give you the raise. It's very likely that you won't see the raise you want to see at your current job. I don't know what it is, but people value what you've learned, the experience you gained at other companies more than they care about what you gained in your laboratory. I don't know why. I don't personally do that. But unfortunately, I often don't sign the checks. So, the people who do sign your checks, that's who ultimately makes decisions. But if you are focusing on making the right trades, if you're putting the time in to make yourself better, if you're really, really, really doing your part and really making yourself better, and if you really are making yourself valuable, then someone else is going to take advantage of that value. And they'll pay you what you're worth. They'll pay you what you feel you're worth. But you got to put in the effort. You got to take that initiative, get in there, and start grinding it out. Cola posted a bulletin just recently. Saw a post on LinkedIn about it, but there's a bulletin that's been posted that CLIA is now emphasizing that you must have your competency, your training, your experience must be documented. It cannot be self-reported. It used to be self-reported. It used to be your resume. It used to be an application. It used to be just a, written out. Whatever you put in there, you say, this is what I did. This is my experience, and they took that. They're not taking that anymore. You have to have documented experience. That could be a letter from your employer. That could be previous competencies. That could be your training program, copies of your training records. You need to start building up your professional portfolio, because working in a clinical laboratory, you have to have your experience documented. It's no longer just, oh yeah, I worked there. That's not enough. You have to have some kind of documentation. And very frankly, if you wait until after you're turning a notice, after you're quitting, the employer may or may not give it to you. very frankly. Or if you're working in a POL, maybe that laboratory might close. You need to make sure that you have your training documents, your experience letters, your stuff necessary to show that you have the experience. It's up to you. You have to take personal responsibility for yourself, for your training, for documentation of your experience. You need to take the personal responsibility and go out there and get it and document it and have it. Because guess what? If you want to take the route that I'm suggesting and go in there and build your value up and move roles, you might need it. It's not professionally etiquette for them to deny your experience. Like if you ask your employer, hey, can I get a letter, a document of my experience? The etiquette is for them to do it. But they don't have to. They can pretend not to see your email. They can not answer your phone calls. If you moved out of state, you're not going to walk, you just drive up there and see them. So, document, document, document. And honestly, take the time to really reflect on what value you're adding. What have you built up? So the thing is, the reason why employers don't value what you've learned on there is because they feel they gave it to you. They feel they trained you. They built your value. They don't want to pay you what they want to pay you because they think the value that you have, they created it. It doesn't matter whether you put all the initiative on your own, you did this and that, and you chose to cross train and you did this, you showed this kind of initiative. It doesn't matter. You gain the value, you gain the experience inside their doors. So for some reason, they value that less. I think it's ridiculous. I value that more because then you are built the way I want you to be built. You've got the values that I want you to have. I would rather pay that employee than to lose another employee and try to hire somebody else and be like, oh yeah, they have this much experience, great. If they don't have the experience in this doors, they don't have the experience on this instrumentation, they don't have the experience with our personnel, with our staff, I prefer to retain. Now obviously if someone says, hey, I want you to double my salary, alright, that might not be realistic. And then you have to let them go. And maybe somebody else, let them go look, not let them go, but let them go look for another job. And if someone else is willing to hire them for double their salary, well then, man, maybe I made a mistake there. But if you really can't afford it, you really can't afford it. That's always the excuse is that they can't afford it. And if they really can't afford it, it doesn't matter how good they are, they can't afford it. Of course, they're going to pay for it on the other side when they have to hire, train, and bring somebody else in. And could they really afford that either? Probably not. But I digress. I'm off a little bit of track here. All right. The important thing is go out there and put in the work. The trade-off is that you got to put in the time, you got to get the skills, you got to get the experience now, so that way you can use that in the future. You put the time in, you put the effort in, you put the initiative in, you go out there and you work your tail off, but not just work your tail off doing, prepping a ton of samples or prepping blah blah. Build yourself. Build your skills. Sure, maybe running a bunch of samples is building your skills. If you've never done that before, if you haven't seen that kind of high capacity laboratory setting, then that could actually be good. It actually be really good for you to deal with that and to learn from it. But at the end of the day, you need to be building your skills, building that experience, building that muscle, getting stronger, and getting yourself up there to where you can be high value. Get that supervisor role, technical lead, lab director, assistant lab director. Depending on your degree, there may be limits there, but you can get there. And ultimately, if you have a desire of owning your own laboratory, starting your own laboratory, maybe it's a good idea to be in a laboratory and learn the roles, learn what needs to be done, learn what delegation's like. There's a ton of nuance to laboratory and ownership. It's a business. There's so much to learn. I'm trying to learn it all still. I got the laboratory side. I'm CLIA lab director. The business side, not so much. I'm learning that, and it's a something. It is a something. So today's lesson: trade-offs. Put in the work. If you want that life, if you want that paycheck, if you want that 10% raise, if you want to be paid high value, put in the time, make the trade-off, make yourself high value, put in the value, then either you'll get paid in your current position, or you'll find someone who will. You'll find that laboratory that will pay you, and we're making the moves to get it done. Because ultimately, the market will adjust, and it will create your value. You can't fake the market. It's like professional sports. Whenever you're on a rookie contract and you're ready to get paid, if the team you're trying to sign back with doesn't value and doesn't want to pay you, there's other teams out there that will. Now, of course, there's another trade-off in there. Just like with just like with professional sports teams, you're not going to stay in the same city. You might not be able to stay in your hometown or the town that you're currently at to find that role, to find that one that's going to pay you the money. So you have the trade-off. You have to decide: do I want the role? Do I want the money? Or do I want to leave to go get that money, or do I want to stay? Do I value? Is it more important where I'm at, being in the location that you are, with the people that you are? Sometimes the culture, sometimes the people themselves are what you don't want to leave from a laboratory, from a job. Which I mean that's a good thing. When you have a culture that's built up, it can be hard to leave. At the same time, once that culture erodes and once people start leaving, that makes it a lot easier to leave. You see that a lot of times where uh, people start jetting, people start breaking off, and then it's a pandemic. Everyone just kind of falls off because the culture was there. The culture is what had everything built. That's what was holding people in. There's a trade-off, the uncertainty, the changing. People don't want to change that. They don't want to give up that. That's fine. If you don't want to give that up, you don't want to make that trade, then don't. Everything is a trade-off. There's no easy answer. Everything, you can't have it all. You may have to sacrifice the location and the culture to get the paycheck, or you have to sacrifice the paycheck for the location. Everything comes with a trade-off. I just wanted to highlight that and to talk about it. Talk about it in a lab setting. I thought it was interesting. It was a very important. I mean, I thought it was a good lesson in terms of trade-offs and generating value, and I think that applies very much to the lab setting. Just like with a lot of things, you can take life lessons and apply them to the laboratory setting. And I think that you should take every opportunity you have to build value. And I think that people don't think about the trade-offs a lot. I think it's easy to want the big paycheck and want the big life without somehow thinking that you can get away with that without putting in the work. And ultimately, you can't. And you can't be valuable. You can't earn that paycheck without working hard and creating value and becoming valuable. You have to become valuable. There has to be a level of value there. And there has to be a level of work to get to that value. So, you guys decide, trade-off's worth it. Same thing. If you're not growing, if you're not building on yourself, if you're not building on the laboratory, if you're not building on your skill set, if you're not expanding, then very frankly, what have you done to earn your paycheck, to earn your salary increase? You haven't really done anything. You can't just expect more value just because you've been there longer. It doesn't work like that. Cost of living, you can argue cost of living, but cost of living adjustment doesn't mean that much. Doesn't mean it's gonna be that much of a pay increase. So keep that in mind. Trade it off, trade it off, trade it off. you got to decide yourself, is it worth the trade-off? And as always, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button. If you found this useful, please share with one of your friends in the laboratory setting. And if you're interested, check out the link below for the Stand Store for more continuing education content. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.